Africa's biggest festival of football is back in January. Senegal are the defending champions, whilst Morocco are flying high after the FIFA World Cup in Qatar. So who will be continental champions in 2024? Hello there and welcome to Football Now from Doha. It is nearly that time of year again where one of the biggest competitions in world football begins. The 2024 Africa Cup of Nations kicks off in just under a couple of months' time with the Ivory Coast as the hosts. On this week's episode of the show, we'll take a deep dive into some of the favourites who are taking part and some of the stars that we can expect to feature, as well as understanding just what this competition means to the people on the continent. But before we do that, let's remind ourselves about a tournament that first began way back in 1957. After the creation of the Confederation of African Football in June 1956, there were immediate plans for a continental tournament to take place every 2 years, and it was Egypt who were crowned the inaugural champions in the first ever AFCON a year later, the first of 7 occasions they would claim the title. By the 1970s, the amount of nations competing had been raised to 8, and the tournament was thriving as 6 different nations lifted the trophy over the span of a decade. Sudan, Congo, Zaire, now known as the Democratic Republic of Congo, Morocco, Ghana and Nigeria all enjoyed success over those years. In the modern era, 24 teams now compete, and Egypt again have led the way in terms of reaching the latter stages. They've made 5 out of the last 10 finals, including winning an unprecedented 3 in a row from 2006 to 2010. They were also involved in the most recent 2022 final, losing on penalties to Senegal, who were crowned winners for the first time.
Well, I mean, just looking at the scenes from the last AFCON, how much it just dominated the landscape, not just in the host countries, but also in all African countries. It's such a massive deal. And I think that you look at the teams that are on show, and it's such a tough one to call. There's going to be some really, really difficult games, even in the group stage. But I actually think that there's a cluster of maybe 8 or 9 teams that have got a serious chance of winning that title, which makes it a very, very exciting proposition.
Yeah, it's clearly a competition that means so much to millions of football fans across Africa. But what about the teams taking part? The draw back in October produced 6 intriguing groups of 4 for the tournament. Host nation Ivory Coast have been placed alongside Nigeria, Equatorial Guinea and Guinea-Bissau in Group A. Egypt, who will be looking to avenge their final defeat 2 years ago, will begin against Ghana, Cape Verde and Mozambique in Group B, while Senegal will begin the defence of their trophy against 5 times winners Cameroon, Guinea and Gambia in Group C. Algeria, still captained by Riyad Mahrez after his departure from Manchester City in the summer, will face Burkina Faso, Mauritania and Angola in Group D. In Group E, Tunisia will be looking to progress from a group containing Mali, South Africa and Namibia. And after a World Cup fairy tale in Qatar culminating with them becoming the first African side ever to reach a semi-final, Morocco will come up against Democratic Republic of Congo, Zambia and Tanzania in their first stage of their quest to win this tournament for the first time since 1976. So then, as you saw there, Senegal are the reigning champions following Sadio Mane's heroics in Cameroon. The first-time winners will be in contention once again this year, but they face some tough opposition, not least Morocco, who became the first African side to reach the semi-finals of a FIFA World Cup when they did so here in Qatar last year. Walid Regragui's side captured the hearts of the footballing world during the tournament, and with the Atlas Lions set to host the AFCON next time around, it really is a golden period for the nation.
On paper, they're a very strong side, but I think what makes this team spectacular is the sort of unity, the cohesion they have, not only within the squad, but also with the coach, with the supporters. They all seem to be really pushing, and even at the federation level, nobody has better football infrastructure than Morocco on the continent. They know how they want to play football. They know that they wanted, at the World Cup, they sat back, they were very compact, very organized, and they sort of surprised teams with the counterattack.
Now, the Africa Cup of Nations' most successful side is Egypt. The Pharaohs have won the competition a record 7 times, including on 3 consecutive occasions between 2006 and 2010. Once again, they'll be buoyed by the likely inclusion of the continent's biggest star, Mohamed Salah. Salah has enjoyed huge success with Liverpool since signing for the club back in 2017, but major silverware with his country has eluded him. So could this be his year?
I think he carries the burden of Egypt firmly on his shoulders, doesn't he? Because, you know, with the greatest will in the world, he is a cut above a lot of his compatriots in terms of the ability that he has. He is one of the best players in the world. Some would argue he has been the best player in the world in certain seasons. It's not necessarily down to him not being able to maybe do the business, but maybe just that his national side aren't quite of the same level as the club side that he's enjoyed the success with in Liverpool.
Well, Egypt's gain will be Liverpool's loss. The January tournament means that a number of major European sides will be without key players for up to 5 weeks during their domestic league. So which stars should we be keeping an eye on during the competition?
This time around, there's a new generation of players that we're also very much looking forward to. And I think the main one is Napoli's star striker, Victor Osimhen. Also, I think you have Yves Bissouma. Yves Bissouma is a player that we've sort of known in the Premier League. And I think with Mali, he's sort of seen as like a number 10 and he sort of flourishes in that role. So I think Yves Bissouma is another one that we could very much look out for in the Ivory Coast.
Yeah, it's all set to be a brilliant tournament with some massive names involved. That is all we have time for. Do let us know who you think will win it using the hashtag FootballNowAFCON 2024, and we'll see you at the same time next week. Bye for now.